Today, it gives me great pleasure to be with you and to introduce Mr. Bob Thaker. And on behalf of the Bahrain Authority for Culture and Antiquities, and collaboration with the Indian Embassy, we thank you for being here to commemorate 50 years of bilateral relations between Bahrain and India as part of a week-long cultural celebration. Mr. Bob Thaker is an embodiment of both Bahrain and India. Tonight, he will speak to us about India and Bahrain, honoring the past, inspiring the future, from his unique perspective as a member of the Tatai Hindu merchants community, which he is currently the president of. Businessmen who trace their roots to Tata in Sindh, present-day Pakistan, who settled in Bahrain and Dubai, call themselves Tatai Bhatiyas. They are the oldest expat business community in the kingdom, some of which can trace back to 200 years. Mr. Thaker's own family has been in Bahrain for over 70 years. Born and bred in Manama, he is the CEO of his family business in both Bahrain and the UAE. He is an active member of the community as vice-chairperson of the Commercial Market Committee of the Bahrain Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and a professor at the BIBF of Marketing and Management and the British University of Bahrain for the past 12 years. He is also a member of various NGOs and committees and associations, such as holding the posts of president and board member of the Rotary Club in Manama, member of the ASEAN Bahrain Council, Bahrain Japanese Business and Friendship Society, the Bahrain French Society, and the list goes on. He has also been on the board of the Entrepreneurs Organization, the EO, and founded the EO Accelerator program in Bahrain. And he is also a mentor for young entrepreneurs in Temkeen. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Bob Thaker tonight, which I think will be a very engaging talk. Thank you, Mr. Bob.
Assalamu alaikum, good evening. Thank you, Haya. Embodiment of Bahrain and India is absolutely the perfect way I would like to be introduced, and I really want to thank you for it. Farah Matar, Director of Culture and Arts, Haya Al-Saad, Bahrain Authority of Culture and Antiquities team, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. Assalamu alaikum, and I'm delighted to be here to speak about a topic which is particularly close to my heart. And I would like to thank Her Excellency Sheikh Hamid bin Mohammed Al Khalifa, His Excellency Ambassador Piyush Srivastava, Ambassador to the Kingdom of Bahrain, and the BACA team for giving me this opportunity. We talk about history, and there are cliches about history. If we forget history, we are condemned. This one I particularly like because what defines a nation is what is past. And if we do not know where we come from, we don't know anything. This has been one of my passions, in particular about tracing the history of our community. I've titled this Honoring the Past and Inspiring the Future, because I am convinced that the community I come from, the Bhatia community to whom I belong, has a rich history and, more importantly, a promising future. Now, to encapsulate the history of a small community, and I say small because we have been traditionally never large in numbers. Our identity is unique because we come from this particular place. And to trace and encapsulate, as I said, the history of a small community, which straddles now 5,000 kilometers from origin where we were and where we are now. 3 countries, 4 centuries is a challenge in itself. Our forefathers had to travel thousands of kilometers back then in the 1800s, 1700s, from a place in Jaisalmer in Rajasthan, which is currently in India, to Tata in Pakistan, which is where the small village is, still there, it's a town. And then endure another migration from India to India and then to the Gulf. Just to put things in perspective, I expanded this map so that I could capture some of the smaller towns, and the years are more or less accurate. So this is where the town is, Tata. If you see Jaisalmer, that's where we came from. The story is that we were warriors, and we are Rajputs, as they call it, and we fought many battles. The romantic side of the story is that we thought that we had enough of these battles now, and we just want to go into trade, and that's why we migrated. But that's the romantic side. The truth is probably that we probably got whooped in one of the battles and decided this is not for us. I think making money is a better way. So we went into trade. We are still in the process of discovering what the truth is, and I'll come to that. So from Jaisalmer to Tata, and this was around the 1400s. Tata to Bahrain or the Gulf, because earlier trades were Bahrain, Basra maybe to an extent. There were some people from Basra there. About 1800s, and this is documented, and I'm going to talk about that. 47 was the traumatic partition, so that was when a lot of people moved from Tata, including a family, my family, and a community's families, lock, stock, and barrel in traumatic conditions, both sides, and landed up in Bombay, or they landed up in India. Now, not only did most of my forefathers and our community survive, but they built their lives in these towns, be it Jaisalmer, be it Tata, be it Karachi, and they were displaced twice. Now, 400 years is a long time in history, but it's still generations who could talk about it to the next 3 generations at least, or 2 generations at least, grandfather telling a grandchild. So the stories kept on going, all oral history. So we had wars, natural calamities, economic decline, political upheavals. These were the main causes for the migration. And then came Bahrain, and since 1800s or so, we have our roots here, and most of the community is here and flourished here or in the Gulf. It is therefore vitally important to reinforce what Bahrain is doing now. And since so many years, the policy of tolerance, welcoming nature. Different religions, different ethnics have come here, have lived here, and they have been welcome. And we are grateful to the Khalifa family who allowed us to first come here and not only stay in Bahrain, pursue our business, practice our religion. And there is no better testament to this than the 200-year-old deity which we have in the temple, in the heart of Manama. And our community, particularly our community, I think, remains grateful to the royal family for this and the political leadership for this. I was telling Haya about our story, at least my family story, of my uncle and my dad, and how they struggle. And that's an epitome of every Bhatia family in Bahrain. Almost all of them came here with hardly any fortune or hardly any wealth. But it was Bahrain who allowed us to live here, to conduct our business and flourish. We have lived here, of course, and to all of us, it is not a second home, it is our home. And now, it's been said so many times, it's becoming a cliche, so I think I must find another one now. But we continue to live peacefully amongst the Bahraini community. Embarrassed to say that most of us don't even speak the language, despite of being here for so many years. Mea culpa. And we endeavor to be model citizens in the country. The fact that we have so much diversity in such a small geography, it's not a large country as we know, so it's not that we are isolated in one part of the country and we're living or we are ghettoized. We are in the community and in the heart of Manama, and most of them have lived there. But we have lived amongst Bahrainis, and despite of whatever the differences are, it's always been a story of harmony, story of welcome, story of living within a community. And what we have tried to do is live as model citizens in the country. Now, the links with India it's work in progress for us, but there are objects which have been now displayed as objects of the month in the museum here. And it's fascinating to see how old these are. Any guesses? If I don't know how many of you have seen it. If you've seen it, then you know the answer. These are from the western part of India and Gujarat, and they were discovered in Bahrain. So any guesses how old they are?
1,000?
Yeah? Look at this. It's Madinat Hamad Cemetery, 1800, 1900 BCE. The female figurine is fascinating. Al-Qilat al-Bahrain, 1st century. So there is no doubt the links of the kingdom of Bahrain and India back to thousands of years. And these, of course, artifacts which I urge you to go and see them. They are there for a month because of the celebration of India-Bahrain relationship. They are currently in being displayed here, and of course they are a testimony of our age-old links. So this is established. Trade, people to people, whatever the contacts were, this is taken care of. So I want to talk about our community, and we were given the name Banyans. And these are some of generic pictures how Banyans used to dress, about our community and about the roots. The tracing of history, and this is why I said it's work in progress, is because 2 years back we decided to, on this project of actually doing a book which documents it like a historical document. Not oral stories which are fascinating, I must say that. Not word of mouth, not grandfather telling a grandchild what it was all about, but an actual historical document, well referenced, which tells what our story is. Now, it's been 2 years since we started this. We have appointed a leading historian in India. She's a professor of history, retired, and she's doing this pro bono for us because she's fascinated by smaller communities of India who migrated. It's a vast country with a lot of different religions and a lot of smaller communities. We are one of the smaller ones, and these smaller communities, if they don't document their history, we believe it'll be a loss for civilization and for our future generations. So we decided to do this and embark on this journey, and I've been helped by our community members. One of them is sitting there. 2 of them are here, actually, so I would like to thank them. Bharti, Deepali, really great work that you guys are doing. We appointed historians in India. We have a historian in Pakistan because it's difficult for a historian in India to go to Pakistan for whatever the reasons are. So we have decided to appoint somebody from there, and she's from Karachi, which is close to what Tata is, and she's a young historian, and she's doing her PhD now, but she's very keen to work on this. And she's excited about it because she also specializes in this. We have somebody in the UK looking at the India office records. Most of the records are there, and we have somebody doing that, and we are hopefully concluding very soon with a Bahraini historian who would give the Bahraini part of it. And we are pretty crystal clear about what it is. It is going to be the most comprehensive document chronicling the history of our community. And the fact that we have been here for so many years in Bahrain obviously means the links between Bahrain and India are going to be also chronicled and also captured in this piece of document. So historically, the trading community that is, they are called Banyans. They are called Banyas in India. They became Banyan in Bahrain. And it was given to us by early Bahraini communities and has stuck. And it's a label I'm proud to wear. I must say that. All of us are. And the literal meaning of Banyan is a trader in all over India. There are millions of them pursuing their trade, small shops, small corner grocery stores, small places, doing day-to-day services, day in, day out, and leaving and creating a legacy of entrepreneurs. Why Mahatma Gandhi? Because he was a Banya as well. And he said that in his book, if you read his book on experiments with truth. And there is an anecdote which I would like to repeat here, and it's my favorite story actually. The Baniyans are known to be, of course, sincere, hardworking, respect and trust. If you ask any old Bahraini businessman, he will say, these are the values which epitomize or what Baniyan stood for in the olden days. So Mahatma Gandhi's story comes here, and this has been often repeated. I don't know how many of you heard it, but this is an anecdote which was mentioned about Baniyan community. It was narrated by a friend of the Nawab of Palanpur. Palanpur was a small state before independence, and the Nawab there was a gentleman called Tali Muhammad Khan, who was close to Mahatma Gandhi. He knew Mahatma Gandhi well, and he knew his food habits. And Mahatma Gandhi was a very austere person. He was, of course, pure vegetarian. He hardly ate anything. And the Nawab took along goat's milk and fruits when the former was traveling from Delhi to Palanpur. This was pre-Independence Day, so in the 40s, 30s, late 30s, 40s. The Nawab would then join the Mahatma at a place called Amirgarh and would accompany him till Palanpur and on the journey. Now, according to the report, the Nawab joined the Mahatma one time on Monday, which happened to be a day when Gandhi would be silent and communicate using only a slate and a chalk. He had these things called Maun Rat. He would, for one day, he would not speak to anybody. He would just answer the questions by writing on a slate. Not many people knew that, but this was one of his things. And Monday was one of those days he was doing that. So once he got the fruit and milk, after Mahatma accepted the fruits and the milk, the Nawab wrote 3 sentences on the slate as questions to Mahatma Gandhi. The first question was, how long will you be in Sabarmati, which is the ashram, the place where Mahatma was there? So that was the first question. The second was, when will your name, the first was, how's your health? The second was, how long will you be in this ashram? And the third was, and this is an interesting question because it has many significance, when will your name be printed on the real currency notes? The photos are already on the playing notes sold to children in bazaar, but they're not on the real notes. Obviously, this is a metaphor. The real notes would be when India would gain independence, and that's when the new notes would be printed. So that's the question they wanted to ask, where was the freedom moment? In return, Mahatma replied to the first question, how's your health? He said, better ask of the health of my co-travelers who have been on the train with me and also going through hardships. The second was, how long will you stay in this ashram? And his answer was, I will stay in the ashram as long as the British wish. Obviously, because they could always arrest him or they could put restriction on his travel. The Mahatma then erased the third question about the notes from the slate. And when the Nawab insisted to ask him, please answer the third question, Gandhi very quietly wrote on the slate, as you have given me 2 things, milk and fruits, how can you expect an answer to the third question? At the end of the day, he said, I'm a Baniya, and you cannot fool me. So traditionally, the Baniyans are known for their integrity, trust, and their keen sense of business. And Mahatma was also one of them. That's why I put this story in. Now, some other talk about our book we are going to be doing and the museum which we are planning, and I'll come to that later. We'll be tracing the documenting this whole history of our community, and we'll be putting this into a museum which will be part of the redevelopment plan. And of course, it could be a coffee table book. There is some debate, it could be just a historical reference book. But we are very keen to capture this. And since I'm in a museum, I thought I must at least talk about the museum and see how, I'm sure there are areas to work when this is up and ready. Now, this is another cliche. Why did I put this up? I know everybody's seen this picture. And it's one of the most famous pictures. We talk about Jacques Cartier coming to Bahrain and looking at our famous Bahraini pearls. I put it up there for a reason. So it's fashionable to talk about globalization positively when the term was first coined by Theodore Levitt, and he said about how globalization is going to change the world, which happened. Supply chains were then dispersed, and all over the world really became a global village, and back then it was very fashionable to talk about globalization. Currently, of course, it's rather a negative term because of what's happening to our supply chains and what COVID has done to them, but that's not the part of the story. What I'm proud to say is, think about it, what our forefathers did. This is 1800s, and I think they were practicing globalization in the 1800s. And how were they doing that? Well, they were living in Tata, Pakistan, now, or subcontinent, you want to call it whatever. They were trading spices and food with Bahrain, okay, in exchange for pearls, which landed up in Mumbai and also found in Paris. So globalization is not that new. This was globalization in the 1800s, okay, this long supply chains and a product which was done and famous for reaching, and of course India was a big market for pearls, for Bahraini pearls back then. So that's the reason I put it, that's why I put up the Jacques Chirac Cartier 4 picture on this. The other well, there's some of the other pictures there, and the other story which I would like to share, and it's really history which is there, but it's really in a form of story, is a fascinating book which I read by Nader Kadam. And this book, fortunately, has been translated into English. I believe it's been done here in the Ministry of in Dhaka. And thank you for that. I wish all the books could be there before I perfect my Arabic and start reading Arabic. But that book mentions that in 1829, there were 100 Banyan merchants in Bahrain. 1829. And he has referenced it, so obviously it is pretty much cataloged and documented. So 1829, 100 Banyan families in Bahrain. And there is a letter which I will share now with you, also from Nader's book. I had a chat with him before I did this, and he said, feel free to use my sources. Very kind of him to let me allow that. And there is correspondence between Indian merchants, Banyan traders, between the traders and Lord Curzon, who was the Viceroy of India. And in 1903, he visited Bahrain. And the letter mentions that we would like to inform you that we have settled since 200 years past, when there were no steamships visiting the Gulf. This is in 1903, and there were Banyan traders who were saying they were there for 200 years. Somehow we have to change our statement that we are here for 200 years, but I think we have been longer than 200 years, surely. And this is backed up by the letter. I put up, it's not very clear, but there was no, and this, may it please your excellency, we the undersigned, British Indian merchants residing at Bahrain, have pleasure in taking advantage of your lordship visit. The gist of the letter was more interesting. The letter actually requested, I'll just summarize this, I don't expect you to read it in that font. The letter actually requested the British Viceroy to have a political agent in Qatif, because they wanted to trade with Qatif, and they were having difficulties because of vessels were being attacked, there was no system, there was no legal sort of thing, and so they said we would respectfully beg to put this before your kind consideration. In 1864, trade relations started at Qatif, and then large businesses was there, but we were having a problem, we are at a disadvantage, we had families, so since Bahrain has enjoyed unexceptionable tranquility even then, this is 1903 that they've written about, we want to have trade, anxious to grow trade of Qatif and Qatar. What does this letter tell us? One is, of course, the Indian merchants were there. Secondly, they were always looking for opportunities and trying to expand their business. And they actually said, we offer our prayers, and it's a bit subservient, this letter, obviously, being the rulers of the subcontinent, and then His Most Gracious Majesty the King Emperor, and whose rule, and whatever, the rest of it is all pretty boring stuff. But the point is that they wanted this to happen, and they wanted to grow their trade back then. So another evidence of long trade and long history of Banyans in Bahrain. The other thing which I would like to share is the other way, the families who stayed. This also is mentioned in Kadam's book about several leading Bahraini families, and there were names which he has given. The Zayanis, the Tajers, Al-Rayed, Al-Moyeds, who have lived there frequently. My good friend Yusuf Salahuddin is here, and he is going to be speaking on the 17th of this month, and I believe you're talking about this exact topic. And they're working on a book for the chamber. You and I think Nabila Jour, if I'm not mistaken. So please do come and attend. It's a fascinating history. I'm looking forward to it, about the families, Bahraini families who were living in Bahrain and what sort of connections we had. So it's a two-way traffic which was there, as we say, and I'm looking forward to your talk, Yusuf, and I'm sure it is going to throw much more light. You're a historian of repute, so we are looking forward to that. Some of the other pictures which I found in the book, some of the traders here, and I just thought I'd put them here, just reinforcing our whole story about our relationships. Dr. Mangala, who's our historian, researcher based in Bombay, she's been here and spent several weeks here, has done some research. As I said, it's work in progress. So she's done about 7 or 8 chapters, if I'm not mistaken, Dipali, about 8 chapters that she has done about Bahrain, about Jaisalmer in Rajasthan. And she's concluded that the original home of the Bhatiyas was somewhere in the northwest of India, in Multan. So it's reverse migration. We didn't know this fact. Due to the wars and, of course, and invasions, they were pushed to different directions in the subcontinent in northwest of India. So it was in Sindh, and then their direct route to Rajasthan. They even became rulers, and they built forts. I'm proud to say this was built by our community. They say it's a palace a fort in Jaisalmer, which is where we are originally from, and this was built around 1156. Of course, due to the wars, they migrated to different parts in India, and they went to Tata, and they settled in Tata and Karachi. So the migration process for us was pretty complicated. There was the first migration to Multan, the second from Multan to Rajasthan, then in Jaisalmer, then comes the attacks in 1250 something, and when some Bhatiyas, I think this is the battle I'm talking about, where we really must have got whooped and said, okay, this is it, we want to move on with our lives, and thank God, because otherwise we wouldn't be here. So some of them returned to Multan, and some left for safer places like Punjab, Sindh. Tata apparently was a place which some people chose. This I'll come back to. And in the olden days, of course, Tata was on the banks of River Indus. The city also used to be a capital of many kings. There were many vessels coming and going there. There were Arab traders there. They used to bring a whole lot of, they used to bring dates also. So it was about 300 years that we're talking about. Besides Arab countries, of course, there was trade with Balochistan, Iran, Afghanistan. Now, what is fascinating is we have in our community families who are called Kandaris. And I think this comes from obviously trading with Kandar in Afghanistan. Has to be some kind of connection. There is a name of Rastagi, which is also in our community, and Wabis. So this is also from our community. So we are quite fascinated how those names have come about. Of course, there were no steamboats. This was before sails, so it was a tough job. Trade to Iran was through roads, and then of course Bandar Abbas was another thing. And there are some places where there are still markets which are called Bania Bazaar. So that's also what her research has thrown up. Nader, again, from his book, has thrown up this fantastic statistics. I think this is the most fascinating thing for me about the trade in 1867 between Bahrain and India. I'll let this picture be there. This is pretty self-evident, really. Rice and spices and pearls dominated the trade. Nearly 93% of exports to India was pearls, and 83% of imports.
Do you think this is 100,000 coffee in tons?
No, it's rupees. Yeah, I'm sorry, I think it's got cut off there. But the price, it's written price there, so I assume it's rupees, that was the currency.
Which year?
This is 1867, according to Nader's book, and it's fantastic. If you look at the trade figures, which I got from the embassy now, cardamoms, of course, there's some people who are doing cardamom business here. I think they are in this hall. A long time, your forefathers were doing it. There he's sitting at the back. And then, of course, there are food people here. They would know this also. So cotton, coffee, I saw something pretty vicious.
So,
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah. So these were some of the. This is some of the stuff which went in, and of course rice and something which came back here. So this is the figures. These are some of the, these are from Nader's book. I really urge you to read that book, Manama, the City That Never Sleeps. Fascinating. It of course focuses on Manama. There are some parts of it which touch upon India and of course the trade with. So that's some of the stuff which he has done, and majority of course was, we know that, but now this is backed by data. And of course, the relationship with countries have been cordial. Our community member, one of them was a gentleman called Gangaram Tikamdas. He actually was running the customs in Bahrain. Famous name. And also there was a certain gentleman of name of Jethanand Lalchand who was running the Sharjah customs, if I'm not mistaken, also in the early days. Of course, times have changed, but our relationship still remains strong with the countries. What else do we have? These are some of the family community, Bhatia community members, and this is, I think, with the Maktoum families, if I'm not mistaken. We are hopefully going to be including this into. This is from the DI family as well. Some pictures. And this is from, it says, His Highness Said bin Maktoum, ruler of Dubai, tea party arranged at Taj Mahal Hotel. The one on the right-hand side. Yes. No, it must be. Yes, yeah. So this is the other challenge we are having, collecting old family photos and putting them into one document. Everybody has stories in our community. Nobody has put them together and made them into one document. And I think that would make a fascinating story, read, so that we can then have it sequentially, chronologically, and then we could have it in such a way that we know what our history is. And that's why my first slide always said we cannot ignore what history was. And I think we believe, and I'm not saying this because of hubris, we believe this is the generation who has to do this, because our next generation, I don't think my kids are going to be interested or would have the time or the inclination or any passion for this. And so the onus is on us to do this and document it. And this is a massive project we're working on, and we hope that we can be successful in this. And therefore books like what Nader has written, books which Mr. Yusuf you're writing, will be absolutely important components of what our book is going to be, and it's going to be some time. And our history is, we are not too worried about Bahrain. We know that there are many historians here. Our India part is taken care of. The Pakistan part, now we have found somebody, and the India records in the UK, in London, in the National, in the India office, that has a treasure trove of data. And I'm sure it's just lying there. Nobody must have bothered, because we were never a large community. We're just a small community. Nobody wants to pay attention to it. So therefore, the onus is on us to do it. So all this, what I have been saying is, it just establishes the fact which we all know, that it's a history, it's a relationship which goes back a long, long, long time. It's just that now we are putting all this together. And it was not only people to people, it was trade, of course, which started it, and the people came here, and then, of course, we lived in this community, and we have prospered, and we have thrived, and we are grateful for that, and we appreciate that, to be able to do that, and also, more importantly, maintain our identity. I will now come to, I'm not a big statistics guy, but data is data, you can't ignore it, and this is something which I have been fortunate enough, the embassy has been very kind to share with me, and I put in some statistics just to show where things are in the current way. The bilateral trade, Indian exports and Indian imports. I just wanted to put this in perspective, because we talked about the past. This is where we are in the future, in the present. And it's important we understand about bilateral trade, we understand about where the numbers are, and what is now comprising this trade. The embassy was very keen to this. What has happened is, and I think this is really important what the embassy has said, and this is my take on it, I feel that the oil boom which we had somehow relegated the importance of trade and the subcontinent became more of a place the focus shifted on labor. There was a huge influx of labor which was required for the infrastructure. We know that, it's a fact. We saw it in front of our eyes. But what happened was, yes, of course, there was trade happening, but somehow the subcontinent only came to be labeled as, supply of cheap labor, or let's not use the word cheap, but supply of low cost or economically feasible labor to build the infrastructure which we needed in this part of the world. So everybody said, yes, there is trade, but then what happened also was that there was this whole thing, and subcontinent got labeled with that. And I think that's a bit of a sad story, because the trade was always there. It was there so many years ago, it's there now, and these figures speak for itself. And there's some other stories about other major items of export. Agri-products, of course, rice, meat, shrimp. We have amongst us our Indian community who deal in food. Machinery, engineering goods, we have people here, of course, dealing in that as well. Jewelry, polymers, ships, boats, floating structures. These are some of the imports. Major items for imports from Bahrain, of course, are the common ones. Urea, because of GPIC, I assume. Methanol, mineral fuel, mineral oil products. These are the products which go from the aluminium, of course, copper, and then rich section. So these would be going from there. Some more stats which I came across, again, from the courtesy of the trend of this, of course, this 2021 must have been because of the COVID and what it impacted. Some more data because of hydrocarbon, of course, petroleum products, and the bilateral trade, and percentage of hydrocarbon is 14, 16, and 23%, just to put things in perspective. Moving on. Some more data from Indian exports. I don't want to bore you with all this, but I think the point I want to emphasize is that the trade is important, the trade is growing, and the bilateral investments are also growing. And this is something which we have to think about. Nearly 38, this is data again we have received from the embassy. Nearly 38 agencies, 32 branches, and who are with Indian companies. FDIs, of course, going up, and some more interesting information which I have is that Bahrain investments, big ticket investments which are coming to Bahrain from these are Indian companies who are there. I think Bahrain India Society is doing a wonderful job here. Mr. Abdullah is here. Mr. Juma, you're doing a good job in now fostering that. And some of the big companies are here. Of course, InvestCorp also has this big investment in India. The other groups are, for the Kanu groups have invested there. The Manartin concrete block factories are there. Bahrain Fiberglass, Zamil International, and some of the other prominent companies have also invested in India. Just want some more data. It's important that we talk about InvestCorp's investment. It shows that they have a diverse portfolio, nearly $190 million across 12 investments in India since 2011. So that's a good number. The investments are startups, technology-based services, field computer products, consumer products as well. Just some percentages which I wanted to also share in terms of, I think, in terms of investments, I think India was sixth largest in terms of investment of FDIs. And also, I believe that the investment from Bahrain also, Bahrain stands at 47th position in terms of investment in India. It's about 0.03%. So this is where we stand currently. And I think the trade can only go up, grow, because the Indian economy is going to be the fastest growing economy. It will be the fastest growing economy post-COVID. And there is absolutely no doubt that the trade between Bahrain and India can only grow. There is, of course, the natural connections. There's, of course, the changing scenario, landscape in the Indian economy. And there's, of course, Bahrain's absolute need to attract foreign direct investment, likewise in India. So I think the there is enough synergy going around for the trade to grow. So where are we going from here? What's the next thing? Our community is very much here, committed as we are to this country, as originally Indian, but Bahrainis now, and we are proud to say that. And where do we stand now? So we like to share something about our community and what we have done. This is the logo concept, which was actually done by the young lady sitting at the back, Dipali, who did this, and this was something which was conceived by her and by some of us who got together. And why do we say about this? What does the logo say? Of course, the colors are quite obvious, orange and red, signifying India and Bahrain. What are the three squares? And I think this is entrepreneurship, which we are known for. We are innovative and flexible. Why is the third square open? Because that shows our ideas about adapting to what the changes are. Most of our businesses 100 years ago, 50 years ago were different. We were into food, we were into spices, we are now into industrial products, we are now into medical, we are into training, we are into airlines, into travel, we are into hospitality, we are into real estate, you name it, our community is there. We represent the three core values. Squares are supposed to be strong and dynamic, strong foundation, independent, completeness. It also represents, the gradient represents the crossing over of Indian and Arabian culture, so it's sort of a phased color. So a lot of thought has gone into this, and it really epitomizes, it really stands for what it is. It is not a logo which is drawn just like that. We feel that this is important, that we portray this to the community we live in, and we are proud to be part of. What else are we talking about when going forward? And I would like to talk about our community a bit. We have been trading since 1800s. This has been established maybe earlier than 1800s. Once the book is out, we'll have an accurate this. This was formed as in 1940s, but it was formalized a few years ago. The community is basically, our vision is to see that entrepreneurs in Bahrain learn and evolve and make a positive impact in the community we live in. And that's our vision, and we hope that generations after us can continue to do that. Some of the businesses are here, and some of the people here are in this hall are trading for 4 generations, and you know most of them, and you will hopefully see us on Diwali on 4th of November. Inshallah, we'll have this like we used to have it in the old times. And there are generations here who have been trading for four centuries, and it's really fascinating how the businesses have evolved, and it's really a matter of pride for us. What are we talking about in terms of our project here? We have been talking about this for several years, but we are confident that this is going to happen, despite of whatever it is. COVID, of course, set us back a bit, but we believe that the relations between the two countries can only grow stronger. It's not only trade, it will be culture, it will be people to people, it will be us, our contribution back to the community, and at all levels, commercial, cultural, people to people, and we are going to see to it that as long as we are leaders in the community, we actually follow that up. The redevelopment project, I'll move on to it and talk about it. It's nearly 16,000 square feet of land. You must have been there. And it'll be 45,000 square feet, which will be built up. The total budget is around 5 million. It'll probably go up because of COVID, and post-COVID, the costs have gone up. So there's a massive increase in the area. Nearly 100% of this is going to be 3-story. There'll be 6 multi-budgeted, multi-purpose halls. There'll be kitchens. There'll be a museum, which will chronicle all this and capture all this, and it'll be there. And hopefully, we can make this into a dynamic place. A knowledge center. It will also be completely funded by our community. So we are not asking any money from any community. We are raising it majority this, and I think that's our one way of giving back to Bahrain, to a country which has given us so much. And it is beyond a religious project. It is a project which talks about it goes beyond it because it captures history. It plays multiple roles with different halls, kitchens, all the facilities for anybody to come and enjoy that. Also, I would like to share that It will be completely environmental friendly, solar panels. Mazen Umran is our consultant. He was there yesterday, and he's guiding us through this. And we are optimistic about this. We are hoping that, not hoping, we are confident that we'll be able to do it. I will just retract where we came from, from Jaisalmer, and then migration, then second migration, then Bahrain, and we are here right now. And going forward, this is what we are looking forward to. Really, really excited about this project, and we feel that this is going to be a major landmark in the community, a major landmark in Manama, major landmark for the country. We may not be the largest religious temple or a religious place or a complex, but we definitely will be one of the oldest and a community which is contributing and giving it back to Bahrain. These are some of the visuals. These are at, of course, design stage.
So you choose the location?
Same place where it is. Yes, yes. Yes.
How was the parking there?
Yes, there is no parking. We will encourage you to walk around and enjoy Bab al Bahrain, despite of the heat. But no, we feel that I'm sure there'll be a solution to that. Like there's a solution to everything in life. So this is my favorite visual actually. So I would like to leave this here, and finally, we just like to say I'm really grateful to Baka for giving me the opportunity to be here. I'm grateful for being here to share what our vision is and where we have come from. I hope it was fascinating enough for you. We also would like to thank Sheikh Abe who made this happen, and the Indian Embassy. Thank you very much. And we'd like to finally say that we are really grateful to the Kingdom of Bahrain. We're grateful to the Khalifa family. We're grateful to His Majesty the King, Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, who actually was inaugurated this under his auspices. And Prime Minister Modi has inaugurated this, laid the foundation. And we are grateful to His Royal Highness Crown Prince Prime Minister Sheikh Salman bin Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa for all that Bahrain has done for us. And it's really a matter of pride. We wear this badge here not as a symbol, we wear it back because we feel it's close to our heart and we mean it. So this is what my talk is today. Thank you for your patient hearing. I'm open to any questions. I'll try to answer them. I'm not an historian by any chance. I just love this subject and it's very close to my heart. So if there are any questions which you have, I'll be more than happy to answer. And thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for giving me the audience.
The first map you have shown, there is this city, Surat. We write it in Arabic.
Yeah.
Now, what is the significance? Because I have a lot of old letters going back, in the 1880, where they go to Surat, as in the high. So what is Surat?
Not a historian, of only what I read from, and so if I am wrong, I think any historian is more qualified than me can answer. One of the things Surat is known currently for is diamond cutting. It's one of the major diamond cutting centers which has taken over from Antwerp actually, especially on the small diamonds. The big diamonds are still not happening in Surat.
Then I wonder, what was it?
Then it was well known for Parsis. The Parsi community is very strong. There are a lot of Parsis who are named Surtis. S-U-R-T-I, which is from Surat. So that's the other significance. It was also in the 80s, I don't know whether that industry exists. As I said, I'm not very well versed with it. It was known for a lot of textile handlooms used to be there in the 80s. I know some friends who had this business.
The most recent one I have is 1902 or 19...
Back then, I'm sorry, I can't answer this. That's what happens when you pretend to be a historian and give a talk, but you aren't. So, well, I don't pretend to, but I'm just saying very honestly, I'm not a historian. But Surat is also a well-known city because it's in Gujarat, which is the western coast of India.
Yes.
And it is the traders are supposed to be. It's also very famous for, kite flying. In India, kite flying is a big thing. Yeah. The thread from Surat was supposed to be the best. If you have that thread, you couldn't get your kite. And it would cut your hands. That was how good it was and how sharp it was. So as kids, we would try to get that sort of thread so that we could fly kites and have competitions. But that's just an anecdote. It's not historical evidence in any way.
It could be threads and...
Could be, yes. I suppose that would just be one of the buy industry. I'm sure it was textile related. Maybe somebody in the audience would know more this year. So that's... spices and dry food stuff, a lot of it comes from Surat. That's probably it, so. Yeah. Surat is known for that even today. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Bob. It's really very interesting what you mentioned. And as you are mentioned that you are proud about the ruler of Bahrain, the people of Bahrain, we're also proud about you.
Thank you.
Because we live all together in Manama, and all the family, they get together with each. And thank you very much to give us all these historical things about your ruler.
Thank you, Yusuf. You said, I was telling Haya earlier on, you said about growing up here and living in the community. One of the paragraphs in Nader's book talks about the old Manama, and there is Gray Mackenzie on one side, and then he's taking me through that lane. He's taking the reader through the lane, that road, which was Gray Mackenzie and all those. And it was like me walking down as a kid. I don't want to give away my age, but it was like me walking down as a kid with my dad holding my hand and walking to that road. And then, of course, coming to Bab al-Bahrain and then turning left. And then, of course, all the shops were there on both sides. And we would stop by in the afternoon or in the mornings. And after the afternoon siesta, we had a 3-hour break back then during lunch, if you remember. Fascinating. I would urge you to read Nader's book. I wish he was here and he would throw more light, in fact. And I'm hoping I could sort of talk to him and exchange some ideas. But thank you, Mr. Yusuf. We believe that we have lived in this community, and we believe that Bahrain has helped us tremendously to thrive. And we certainly aspire always to be model citizens and live amongst the communities, which is so tolerant, so open, and so welcoming. Thank you very much.